Hey guys, this is Mrs. Harbin, and I need to finish up the periodic functions video. So this is periodic functions part 2. We'll start where I left off with the other ones. So just a reminder about right triangles. We know that triangles add up to 180. And if this right angle here is 90 degrees, then we know the rest of these must be 180 minus 90. So my other two acute angles must also add up to 90. So these two angles right here will always add up to 90. We can use theta as a variable to represent an unknown angle, and then make this pi over 2 minus theta, remembering that pi over 2 is just equal to 90. So if this angle were 30, for example, we know that this one would be 90 minus 30, which is 60. And we can represent that as pi over 2 minus 30. Remember again that pi over 2 is equal to 90 degrees. Pi over 2 is the radians, 90 is the degrees. Well, based on this, we know the cosine of one angle is the sine of the other. Let's take a look. As a reminder, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Well, if we look at the cosine of this second angle here, we see adjacent is side A, and hypotenuse is side C. So the cosine is A over C. And if we look at the sine of this acute angle down here, we see sine is opposite. Well, opposite is A, and the hypotenuse is C, A over C. So you can see here that the cosine of one of our acute angles is the same as the sine of the other acute angle. That is our co-function identity. We know that sine and cosine are co-functions. We also know that secant and cosecant are co-functions, so the secant of one is equal to the cosecant of the other, and tangent and cotangent will be co-functions as well. So the tangent of one angle is equal to the cotangent of the other acute angle. There is a chart with all of these period identities and co-function identities listed for you on page 131. Here is that list of period identities, and we're going to kind of look at this in layman's terms, but you will need to know the periods of each trig function. The period of each trig function is 2 pi, except for tangent and cotangent. Tangent and cotangent are just pi. Sine, cosine, secant, and cosecant repeat every 360 degrees. Tangent and cotangent repeat every 180 degrees. And what this says in layman's terms, essentially, is that adding 2 pi, or 360 degrees, to an angle, one of those first few trig functions, pi or 180 degrees if we're talking about tangent or cotangent, adding those degrees to an angle will not change the value of the trig function. So the sine of 60, for example, is 1/2. If we add, since the period of sine is 360, if we add 360 to that 60 degrees, we get 420, and the sine is still 1/2. We add another 360 degrees, the sine is still 1/2. So it doesn't matter how many times we add 2 pi or 360 degrees, it doesn't change the value of our trig function. Our sine is still 60 degrees because it's like that wheel. Okay, it's just turning. And every time it hits that mark, it's 1/2, 1/2, 1/2, periodically. Again, for tangent and cotangent, our period is 180 degrees. So if we were taking the tangent of 60 degrees, the tangent of 60 degrees would be the same as the tangent of 240 degrees. Just adding 180 to that, and so forth and so on. So that's what our period function means in layman's terms. The sine of an angle plus 2 pi, or 360 degrees, is still the same as the sine of the original angle. Right, our cofunction identities look like this. Okay, this is basically angle 1, acute angle 1, and acute angle 2. And we represent that as pi over 2 minus theta. We could also represent it as x and 90 minus x. So angle 1 and angle 2 on a right triangle, the sine of one equals the cosine of the other. The cosine of one equals the sine of the other. The secant of one equals the cosecant of the other. Cosecant of one equals the secant of the other. the tangent of one equals the cotangent of the other, and the cotangent of the first one equals the tangent of the second. What you really need to know is that sine and cosine are paired together, secant and cosecant are paired together, and tangent and cotangent are paired together in these cofunction identities. Today, we identified periodic functions and their periods. We stated the cofunction, and we also used these things to evaluate trig functions. If you have any questions, be sure that you ask me in class, and we will take a look at this together.